to the For All the Saints podcast. I'm here adorned in For All the Saints custom printed material, and I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend and UK stake president, Darren. Darren, thanks so much for being on the show.
It's great to be here, but I just need to make everybody aware that I'm not the stake president of the UK.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. A stake president in the United Kingdom.
I'm in the United Kingdom and I am a stake president. Please, if anyone watching or listening thinks that I'm the stake president for the whole of the UK, then that's not me.
That would be a big job. But you have just come from a stake presidency meeting, so you're in your office and everything, which we've got it fully official today. Let's get straight into it, Darren. I'm excited to learn from you and about the calling that you're currently in. When did you get this call, and how does the call of a stake president occur? What was your experience?
Yeah, so I have been serving as stake president for coming up to 2 years. On the 18th of November was when I was called. And so my experience of being called was that one day I was busily going about minding my own business, and then I had a phone call from the stake president to say, we are reorganizing the stake. The reason that the stake is being reorganized is because I'm being released. This is what's going on. And although you're not serving on the High Council, I am inviting you to come and to speak with, at the time it was President Bohm. He was the area president, and Elder Dundon. And so, my first response to that phone call was, why on earth are you doing that? Why are you picking me? I can't really remember his response, but I guess that's probably not that important. But yeah, a date was set. I needed to go and be with other brethren who were being spoken to by the two general authorities, or one of the general authorities, and one of the 70 that was reorganizing the stake. So the stake president generally serves for a period of 9 years. And there is a phrase that goes around that you're called by revelation and released by administration, or released by the computer. So 9 years comes up, and you'll receive, or a stake president will receive, a letter coming through to say there's going to be a presiding authority coming to your stake conference, and the stake's going to be reorganized along the lines of thanks for your service, and please can you arrange for all of the High Council to be interviewed, all of the bishops to be interviewed, along with your counsellors to be interviewed, and then you can choose one other person. So some people might say it's a wild card. Some people might say it's another option. There's lots of different terminologies. That's not the official church line, or even the desire of the church. But another person can be chosen at the stake president's discretion. And what they are trying to do is they're trying to speak with people that are stake leaders. So a bishop is a stake calling, it's not a ward calling. In order for the brethren to ascertain who it is that is to be called as the next stake president. So every single person that I've mentioned is interviewed. The interviews last for, from my experience, between 3 to potentially 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. I would have thought they would have been longer.
Very, very short. So when the stake president before me was called, I was serving as a bishop at the time, and so I was called to be part of that process of deciding a new stake president. And so I was in that conversation for a very short space of time. But this time for me, it felt a lot longer. I think it was around 10 minutes. I'm sure that I was in there. But what I've got is a perspective of being on having that those two variations, that it seems very, very clear to me that fairly quickly, this is my experience, fairly quickly, the brethren appear to know whether to ask more questions and whether to prolong the conversation, or if this is just a pleasant, very nice to meet you, great to hear about your family, great to hear about the type of work that you do, great to hear your testimony and your faith, but we'll see you, as the conference progresses. So this time I was called in, and President Baum, I don't know if you have seen him, but he has these brilliant blue piercing eyes. And so as he was looking at me, I was looking at these blue eyes and thinking, wow, they're really quite piercing. And he was asking questions about my family, my wife, my work, how long I'd been in the church. He was asking about my ancestry a bit as well. So we were just having a general, what felt like a general chat. And I thought things were going to wrap up really soon. And then he said, well, if you were to be called as stake president, what do you feel the stake needs? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I've not really given it any thought. And he's then said, well, give it a couple of seconds and let me know. And I'm thinking, okay. And so I thought, and then I came back to him with some things, and he asked me some other things, and then the conversation closed off, and we finished, and I left, and I just thought that was a really lovely conversation. I really enjoyed being in their presence, and felt as though it would have been nice to linger for longer, not because I would have gained anything, not because of any other reason than it was lovely to be in their presence. And as I was leaving the stake center, I was driving home, I was just reflecting on the conversation that we'd had. It's got nothing to do with his blue eyes, by the way. Yeah, just to make that clear.
Just wanted to stay glaring.
That's right, yeah. And so, just reflecting on it, and I was at home, and I got caught up in doing things for my children, my teenage children. I need to be here. I need this. I need that. And as I was doing those things, this feeling of just wanting to be in their presence just wasn't leaving me at all. And it was to the point where I was like, look, I need to move on from this one. You've done this. Just get yourself changed and get yourself sorted. And so that's what I did. I got myself changed. My son wanted to go and meet some of his friends that were in a different town. So I got in the car, hopped in with him. He was learning to drive. He was driving the car as a learner. And so I was thinking that will sort my focus and my attention out, right? Being next to my son who's driving my car. And so as we're getting close to this town, I then have a text message from the then stake president. And he said, how far away are you from Wells Road? And I said, well, I'm probably about 40 minutes away from Wells Road, just dropping my son off with some of his friends. His response back was, get closer. And I'm like, oh, what does that mean? And then like through my mind, I'm thinking, he can't be joking, because this is not he's got other things to do than to kind of play practical jokes at the moment, right? So what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And so then I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop my son off. The traffic was heavier. I said, son, right, you jump out. I'll switch over. I'm going to head back towards home. You carry on. He was fine. So I did that, got into the car. On the way back home, I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll call my wife, let her know. And I said, look, this is what's gone on. And she said, well, we'll see what happens. But I'm out shopping anyway, so I'm doing stuff. So she was already like, I'm busy today. It's a Saturday. I got stuff I need to do, and I'm rushing before conference starts, which is later on in that day. And then so I get closer to home, and then another message comes up. He said, how long will it take you to get to Wells Road from your house? And I said, it will take probably about 20 minutes. But my wife's out shopping. And he's like, well, make sure that you get yourself here as soon as you can then. And I'm like, all right, okay. And I'm looking at the time and I'm like, I don't know what this really means in detail, but I definitely, my Saturday is not going to go the way that I thought it was going to go anymore. So I phoned my wife up, and she was in the middle of Next, and she was buying some bits and pieces that we needed for the children. And I said, look, this is what's going on. And her first words were, I feel sick. And I'm like, okay, we can talk about your sickness later, but how long do you think it will take to get home? Because it seems as though we're needed up at the stake centre quite quickly. So she got home, and I'm changed and I'm ready to go. And I've already processed what's going on and processed, look, I need to get to the stake centre. But she was still going through that process, and bless her heart, she was just trying to go as fast as she could to get ready, but it was like she was wading through treacle. You know, her whole kind of whole cognitive thing for her was just a challenge, because there were so many different thoughts going through her mind. And so we were driving there together. And then we were scenario planning. What if they ask you this? What if they ask you that? As in, to called as this, what if to be called as that? And, you know, what if you were to be called as stake president? And it was like, nah, that's not going to happen. You know, it's probably a counsellor. And, you know, I wonder who the stake president could be, or, you know, I wonder who I'm going to be serving with, all those types. That was a type of conversation that was going on as we were driving. And so we got to the building, and as we walked into the building, the then stake president's wife and Elder Baum, or President Baum's wife, had spent the day doing something together, and they were walking into the building at the same time. So they were ahead of us. We opened up the doors. They both said hi, and we walked in. And the Bristol Stake Centre, there's a long corridor that runs along the back of the building, and so at one end of that corridor are the doors which we came in. So we came in through those doors, and we followed them down this long corridor. And the only reason for you to go all the way to the end of this long corridor was for you to get to the stake president's office and to the High Council room. So when we got to the end, they looked back and saw us, and were like, "Oh, right." And before I knew it, my wife was whipped off into this room. There was like no no nothing. She was taken into the stake president's office by the stake president and introduced. And I was ushered into the High Council room and just there on my own. And it kind of felt like the awkward, I'm the only one in the doctor's surgery, whilst what's going on? What's going to be the prognosis or diagnosis? I don't know really what's going on. And so she told me after that she was sat down, and they introduced themselves as representatives of the Lord, sent specifically on an errand to reorganize the Bristol stake, and then started asking questions about me as a man and as a husband. Am I attentive? Am I kind? Am I who I profess to be on the outside? And she said that those questions were really direct and pointed, but not overbearing. That's what she said to me. But she said that they were definitely searching questions, which, in my thinking, it would make sense, because they've had a fairly short amount of time with me. They would have had some thoughts and impressions come to them without doubt, but they'd need maybe a witness, maybe a perspective that comes from someone that knows me not just at my best, but knows me at my worst. Because when we show up at church, we generally don't show up at our worst. Sometimes we do, but generally speaking, we should. And at least if we feel at our worst, we put something on to not really reveal us at our worst. But my wife really knows what I'm like when I'm at my worst, as I'm sure your wife does. Is as we do with our wives, right? That's the way that it works. And so, it was interesting that they had that approach. And then after they had spoken to her, they then asked me to come and join, and they explained the brief conversation that they had had with my wife, and then extended the call. They said that they have felt impressed by the Lord that I am to serve as stake president. They asked if that was something that I was willing to do, and I said yes. And they asked her first if this was something that she was willing to have me do and support me in. And the 2 years have gone by like lightning so quickly. And in the passing of that time, it's really, really important that my wife was supportive and willing for me to serve in that way, because it's been a change in her life that doesn't get seen. Generally, the change in my life gets seen by somebody, either my counselors or someone in the stake council, people in the stake. They see that, but nobody sees the change that my wife goes through. But yeah, she's absolutely amazing woman.
Was that quite a crazy Sunday morning? I imagine I mean, it's incredible, really, when we've all been there as part of a stake conference when your stake is getting reorganized. Everyone's kind of got that question in their heads of, oh, I wonder what it's going to be. But also, you just think the visiting authorities, the people who are reorganizing the stake, must be exhausted, and yet it's such a it's such an intentional, purposeful thing that they're doing that it's quite amazing to watch them. When an authority visits for a state conference and they're not really doing much business, it's still amazing to hear them talk and hear their insights. But when they're reorganizing a stake, there's an extra level of spiritual presence, I feel, and it doesn't happen very often, but I love to see it. I love to see it occur. But yeah, how was that Sunday morning for you? And also, adding on to that question, how did you go about selecting your counselors? Is this
Yeah.
kind of a process of revelation? Because I imagine you don't have much time. Do you pick people that you know are your friends or that you can trust? It would be interesting to hear about that as well, adding on to that.
Yeah, so after we'd had that conversation and the call had been extended, they chuckled at each other and said, right, now you need to go and choose some counselors, and you need to speak with your wife about who that needs to be, and you need to pray together and receive that revelation together. And so
Interesting.
that was great as well, that my wife was part of this process of
Yeah, yeah.
of receiving revelation of who was to serve as my counselors. And I asked for some guidance, and I said, look, of the people that you've met, because they've met a lot of people, and it was a long day for them. They were there early in the morning, and this was late afternoon. So they were. You make mention of being tired. I'm sure they were tired. Speaking with that many people is going to be tiring, and they just said, look, meet together, pray together, and the Lord will help you. Elder Dundon said, when I was called a stake president, I had 5 minutes to choose my counselors. We're going to be really nice to you, and we're going to give you 15 minutes. So I guess I can count that as a blessing that I had 15 minutes. And so Louise and I, my wife and I, we just knelt in prayer together after speaking for some time together, and very, very clearly and very distinctly, we both felt good about my two counselors, and one of them was a complete surprise, not just to him, but also to other members of the stake, and also to us, if I'm honest as well. And you know, they're great. Both of my counselors are absolutely awesome. They've got different strengths. They see things very, very differently. They both have got a love for Jesus Christ, a love for their wives, a love for their families. They're both just extremely talented, and it's a real blessing to serve with them and to learn from them as well. So 15 minutes, that's how long I had to choose my counselors, but the clarity of who to choose was absolutely there, and it was with my wife that I did that. So that was wonderful to receive that revelation together and to be part of that experience. So then they then came back in, and we said to them, look, these are the two people. And they said, yeah, okay, that's good. We'll go and get that sorted now. We're going to leave now. If you just kind of hover around for a little bit and then come and join the meeting later, because the meeting had actually, the Saturday leadership session had actually started at that time. So that's how long they've been going. They've been going from, I think it was like 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock in the morning. So it was pretty early. So it was
Wow.
quite late in the afternoon that they were going. And then so Louise and I were kind of out there, and we were talking together, and we'd already been given permission that I could tell my parents and she could tell her parents, but I couldn't tell my siblings and she couldn't tell her siblings what was going on. So I went outside in the car park. I was on the phone to my mum. I said, Mum, look, this is what's going on. Are you able to come on Sunday? Because they're in a different state. And so they agreed. And then later on, Louise and I kind of got back together, and we were walking back to the chapel, and we tried to kind of sit down without anyone knowing. But you know, when you go in somewhere and it's obvious that you're trying to be discreet, and the more discreet you're trying to be, the less discreet that you actually are. That's kind of what it felt like. And we were sat at the back, and we could see some people kind of turning around and raising their eyebrows. So we get to a point where people are looking around, and not everybody, but a couple of people are looking around and raising eyebrows and so on. And so that was the meeting done. And when we got home on the Saturday evening, I got my children around and explained to them, look, this is what's going on. And that was a really sacred moment for us as a family to come together. My oldest daughter doesn't want part of the church anymore at this time. She joined us, and we all, even her, had a really special moment together when we were talking about the love that Christ has for us and what this will mean for us as a family, and why serving with all of my heart when an invitation has been extended to me is part of the things that I have promised to do when I was baptized and when I made sacred covenants in the temple. And that was not just important to me, but it was also important to my wife and their mum. And that together we were united in this for however long it is going to be. And whatever comes up for us as a family, and the twists and turns of life as it happens. And so that was great to spend that time. So Saturday night, I did not sleep much. Louise did not sleep much either. And we were just, our heads were busy. Our heads were busy. And I don't have the words to describe what was going on in my head, but it was busy, but not a busy which leads me to a dark place, or a busy that leads me to a place of extreme excitement, but a busy that is in a place of there are things that I need to do, and there are changes personally that I need to make, and there's a becoming that I need to start. And it will not look like anything that I can imagine and conceive, but that, as it says in Proverbs, I need to trust the Lord with all my heart, and don't rely on my own understanding, so that he can direct my path. So that was Saturday night. Sunday, I was due to sing in the choir. That had already been arranged, and I was had gone to the rehearsals. My wife was in the choir as well, so I'm up there, and I thought I could get out of singing in the choir because I'm being called a stake president, right? That doesn't make any sense for me to be in the choir. And anyway, my wife didn't agree with that line of thinking. So, as a good husband that I am, I agreed with her. But this was only after I had only ironed the front of my shirt, because in my mind, I had my jacket on, so I didn't have to worry about the back of my shirt. I was just being really economical, just ironing the front of my shirt. It was a tip that I discovered, or that I was taught when I was on my mission. Just iron the front, the back's fine. No one's going to see the back. So I'm there in the choir singing. We're trying to sing whilst knowing what's going to happen. And people commented to me after, is they said that we could see you up there, Darren, and it looked like you had the weight of the world on your shoulders. It didn't feel like it, but maybe on reflection, that's what it was. But the thing was that our stake conference was recorded, so it could be broadcast on Zoom, and there was some broadcast going out on YouTube as well. And the place that I was sat in the choir was right over the shoulder of the speaker. So you had the speaker here, and then you had me just sat off to the side of the speaker. So everybody at home or wherever they were watching could actually see the expression on my face. And then I just remember the tension that I felt as it was getting closer and closer to the moment that my name was going to be read out. And if I'm honest with you, Ben, there was a huge attack of imposter syndrome, of what if someone or a group of people jump up and say, no, it shouldn't be him, for no, for no reason than just these thoughts in my head of all the reasons why it shouldn't be me. And that's the first time that I had that. I didn't have that when I was called. I didn't have that when I was with the brethren. I didn't have that when I was with my children. I didn't have that up until it was getting closer to that being happening. And if I could, and this is maybe why people felt as though I had the weight of the world on my shoulder. Maybe for that moment in time, maybe that's what they were seeing, is that there was a trail of thought that was going on in my mind that said, this is not for you, Darren. This is not you. And I think we all get that at different times in our lives, where something happens or something's about to happen, and it's something that will stretch us, and it's something that means something to us. But then something comes up inside of us that says, nah, this is not you. You're something different than this. You're going to get found out, or you're not good enough. And it's a rhyme, right? It rhymes in scripture as well, where these people, men and women, have been called to do certain things or have tried to do certain things, and these attacks have come up from the adversary. This teaching that you're not a son or a daughter of God, that God will not be with you, and he won't empower you, and he won't go before your face. He won't be on your right hand or on your left, and the angels won't be round about you to bear you up. And so
in those moments, I always think of Adam and Eve and when they hid because they were naked. And when God comes to visit them as he promised, which in itself is interesting. You can take that little bit as a lesson there. But he asked them why they hid, and they said, "Well, because we were ashamed we were naked." And his response of saying, "Well, who told you that?" has always stuck out to me, and
Mm.
it's something that's helped me in those moments for myself reflect and say, I imagine God saying to me, "Who told you that? Who told you you were inadequate? Who told you you should be ashamed of? Who told you you should hide from me?" You know, it's been an important lesson for me. I think we can all relate to that.
And you're exactly right. And the great irony is that God knows all this stuff anyway, right? God knows
Yeah.
the worst parts of me. He knows this already. So the fact that someone else has brought it to my attention, that maybe God doesn't know it, or he knows already. He knows, um, and yeah, and I think that if I was to follow through for a space of time the desire that I did have in my heart, then I was up for running and hiding. For sure. There was a point where I was up for that. There was also a point where I was up for pushing the pause button and then just having a talk with someone to say, are you sure? Is this,
Just before you announce that, can we just
yeah,
double confirm?
yeah, let's just push pause a second. Let's just have a conversation and we'll come back and visit this again. So yeah, absolutely there was this. But and then when I was called from the stand, I'd like to say that there was this great, wonderful, miraculous, marvelous experience that happened, but there wasn't at that time. There was not at all. The inadequacy, the desire to run and hide did subside, but there was no voice from heaven. There was no dove from above. There was no light kind of beaming in or anything like that that came to contrast that feeling that I had initially. But when I stood up and bore my testimony of the love that I have for Jesus Christ and the faith that I have in him, that was the game changer for me at that point, where I knew that although I wouldn't always feel it, that God would always be there with me. And I've had those moments before where I've had that witness that God would always be there. I wouldn't always feel it, but he would always be there. And that's a really important thing for me historically. Like when I was young, I have made a point of remembering these things to enable me to go through and continue through the times where it doesn't feel like God is with me or connected to me or I'm connected to him, even though there's no reason why that shouldn't be the case. And so it was a wonderful moment to stand and to bear testimony of Jesus Christ, and to also let the stake know that if they are expecting a perfect man or a perfect stake president, then that's not going to be me. And just to set the expectation right now, the front of me is really well ironed in terms of my shirt, because that's what I did. I didn't think I'd be singing in the choir, but if you speak to the choir who can see my back, they will see that it is really, really unironed and super crinkled. And that is a reflection of what is to come, because they are going to see someone that's trying their best, trying their best. But really, if you look at a different angle, you'll find lots of reasons to find fault and to say, look, he's got a development area here and he's really not doing that well there, and he's not great in these areas. And I don't think that that's too different from anyone else that's in the church. And that is the beauty of the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's the beauty of the redemption of Christ, is that even though and because we are weak, the Christ's grace, love, redemption is sufficient to show his power through our weakness. And I think that that's beautiful, because it enables me to see people as children of God, and also see myself as a child of God. So that when I get those moments and I'm like, oh, why did that happen again? Or I wish I was just better at this, that I can just say, this is not about you, Darren. This is about God showing his power. This is about Christ showing his love and mercy and power through you. It's not about you. You get yourself out of the way and just let him shine through.
That's amazing. Thank you for that, Darren. And I love that analogy of the iron shirt. I think that's brilliant. Could you summarize for us and teach us very briefly about what actually is the role of a stake president, what you actually do? And as part of that, were there things that you expected that didn't actually come to fruition in the role of a stake president, and things that you didn't expect, things that took you by surprise that have actually played a role in that calling?
Yeah, great. So the role of the stake president is really to direct the work of salvation within a geographical area. And the work of salvation effectively is the gathering of Israel. So, how do we gather the covenant people on this side of the veil, the ones that are alive, and on the other side of the veil, the ones that have passed on? What is it that we need to do in order to have that happen? And the stake president is the one that holds the keys for that area and for that gathering and for that work. Now, the stake is divided into smaller areas, which are called wards or branches. And so a bishop would hold keys in those smaller areas of that ward to direct the work in that small area. And so as a stake president, my primary concern, my primary focus is on the bishops and on their wives and then on their families. How can I support the bishop in helping the work of the Lord move forward? How can I also support and help the elders quorum presidents through my counsellors and through the High Council to fulfill their responsibilities? How can I focus and help and support what the church refers to often as the rising generation? So those younger people, eight and above, through again my counsellors, through the bishops, through the elders quorum presidents, through the Relief Society presidents, the stake young women's president, stake young men's president, and ward young young women's president. And then on top of that, how can I work with and align the keys with the mission president and with the work that they are doing in proclaiming the gospel as well? So there are lots of coordinating. There's lots of coordinating to do. But what I try to focus on is I try to focus on love and I try to focus on empowerment. I try to focus on helping people to understand how to receive revelation and to fulfill the desire of their heart and come to Christ with a full purpose of heart. And then just support them in that. I am super surprised about the amount of administration that there is to do as a stake president. I get oodles of emails through. Like, honestly, Ben, I tell you, if I didn't have a full-time job, this would easily be a full-time job, and I would probably feel more successful than what I do at the moment with the limited amount of time that I'm able to give. But is it a full-time job? It could be, yes, a full-time job, 100%. That was a surprise. I didn't realize how many administrative emails that I would receive. The other surprise that I had is I wasn't expecting to feel the love of God for the people of the stake and of all of the people, this is going to sound really cheesy, but of all of the people and all of the things that God has created, I wasn't expecting to feel that in the way that I do. And I know that your wife is pregnant at the moment, but I know that you've not had a baby at the moment. So you will understand this when this lovely girl comes into your life in a way that you can hold her and see her, and you can see her progress. And then you'll understand it again if you decide to have more children, that how that love multiplies. But as a father, it's a stronger and a deeper way, and in a different way than I love my children. And to feel that for people that I don't know, but I do know them because of the love that I feel for them. I don't have the words to adequately describe that. I don't have the words for that. But that was a knock me down with a feather surprise, to feel a portion, I feel, of what God feels for other people. And you can speak to my wife. My understanding of that has shifted exponentially. I thought that I had an understanding because I felt a portion of that when I was bishop. Um, and that was wonderful and beautiful. But this, it's a gift from God, and I'm grateful for that gift. And I hope that that gift stays with me after I'm released, because the way that I look at people has significantly changed than what I looked at them before. And I am not by any means an aggressive, kind of vindictive type of suspicious person, when it comes to looking at people. But yeah, I'm not doing a very good job at articulating it, but maybe I could just summarize it and just say, I felt a portion of God's love for people, and the depth of that surprised me like I have never been surprised before.
Is it quite a lot of pressure knowing that the influence that you can have on members, because you're a member of the stake, you attend church there, and then you're thrust into this position where, if I can give you my experience, the stake presidents that I've had during my life, when I've kind of been old enough to understand their role, and I'm not just drawing pictures in state conference on the floor, have been immensely influential in my life. I can tell you all of the stake presidents that I've had, especially in the place where I grew up. Moved around a bit since then, and kind of you get to know them. But especially in my home area, incredibly influential couples, not just the president, but his wife as well. And I've never really thought of that in terms of the pressure that must put on you to fulfill that role of having that influence on the members.
Yeah, to be honest, Ben, I don't feel any pressure, but I am aware that I need to keep my mouth closed, and that I need to listen and let other people speak, and I need to ask really short questions far more than I tell people what to do. And the reason that I'm aware of that is because I've learned through other leaders that I have seen that have told people what to do, and they've gone and done the thing that they've been told to do, but they've not done it with full purpose of heart, because it's not been part of their revelatory experience. It's not been part of their connection to God, and it's not been part of their it's not been part of the fulfilling of their own desire to do the will of the Father. And so if I can be with them and join with them as they learn and understand with me the will of the Father, then it's glorious, because I'm able to rejoice in the things that they're doing, because that's what they want to do and they're a part of that, and I'm able to support them in that thing. And so I don't feel any responsibility for making somebody feel the Spirit. I don't feel any responsibility for making somebody come closer to Christ, because everything's all dependent on what someone wants to do at that particular point in their life and where they're at right now. If they don't want part of it, well, then that's fine. I will extend an invitation because of what I know and what I feel and what I understand. But if someone doesn't agree with that, I respect that, and I love that they are able to come back with a, I'm not going to do it, and it's for these reasons, and I will do all that I can to help and support them as they try to follow the dictates of their conscience. Um, and that changes for people from time to time. There's a few people, and some of them are in my family, that are on faith journeys that they did not expect. And some people have come to me and it's like, look, I'm going to say something now, and I don't think you're going to agree with it, and I don't think you'll like it. And I'm like, well, you can try me, but it's not about me whether I like it, because my opinion is not the one that counts. The one that counts is God's opinion. And so they'll share it with me, and I'm like, this is great. It sounds like you're on a journey, and I encourage you to be a truth seeker on this journey. And if you're a truth seeker and an honest, sincere truth seeker, that's what you're trying to do, then you will find the truth. Because James in the Bible does not lie when he says, if you lack wisdom, ask God and he will give to you, but you need to ask in faith. James is not lying. That's the experience I've had, and there are millions of people that have had the same experience. And so let's do that. We can do it together, or you can do it on your own. It's it's your choice. But if ever you need me, then I'll be in your corner.
How have you dealt with inevitable persecution or criticism or disapproval that comes when you're dealing with such a vast amount of people in a geographical region, and you're kind of the guy who's kind of the face of the church in that area, from members and from outside? I'm sure you've received some persecution that you haven't asked for, and yeah, what's your how have you dealt with that?
The proverb, a soft answer turneth away wrath, is what
Oh,
I've tried to apply.
okay.
I've tried to apply that, and I've before that I've tried not to believe everything that everyone says, including the good stuff. And I've had the good stuff. Oh, you're awesome. You're this. You're that. Okay, that's nice to hear. Thank you, but I don't believe you. And you're terrible. You're this. You're that. Okay, that's not so nice to hear, but it's good feedback. But let me think about that. I don't think I'm quite as bad as what you're painting me out to be, in an extreme scenario. Um, but you're right. There are things I need to work on, and thank you. Um, I am a firm believer. If you ever see anything good come out of me, then give praise to God, because He's shown you His grace and His power. And if you see anything bad come out of me, then just know that I'm trying, and just pray for me. Don't just pray for me. Don't criticize me. And that's it, right? We have we're all on a journey, and we all bump up against each other from time to time. And if someone's bumping up against me, or I'm bumping up against someone, then a rough edge is going to come off, and that's just going to make me smoother and hopefully better fit for the kingdom. So I don't know if that directly answers your question, but I try not to believe that I'm great, and I try not to believe that I'm terrible. And I'm just trying. My wife says I'm trying all the time, but I am just trying. But yeah, I have had a few people get animated and point their disappointment and hurt in my direction. But when I listen to them, I know that it's not a personal thing, that they are hurting and they don't want to hurt anymore. And when I see that, I have compassion for them.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to hurt. If you were coming to me hurting, I'm like, Ben, let me know. I'll try and help you. And if I can't do anything, then I'm not going to get mad with you. I'm not going to tell you to go away and hurt somewhere else because, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And let's learn a little bit about your area. You're stake president for Bristol, right? And a great area of the country. My old boss used to live on the Royal Crescent in Bath, and
He must
so
have been a
you've
wealthy man. Wealthy man.
he was he was a bit wealthy. He was, and I had the pleasure of going and visiting. I love it there. So, but that whole area, Bristol's some of the best restaurants that I've been to in Bristol. Amazing place. But I'm not talking about time out 10 places to eat in Bristol. I'd love to know, what's the church like there? If you're telling members from the Philippines, from Indonesia, from uh, everywhere, from America, obviously, and everywhere, they're thinking, what's church like in Bristol? There's a false narrative somewhere, and I know I've brought this up a couple of times with other people, but mainly with church leaders. It's a false narrative that the church is having this mass exodus and rapidly declining in the UK, and it's laughably not true. There's extraordinary growth happening in the church in the UK, and I believe there is growth in the Bristol area specifically. Um, and so, yeah, tell us about the church in Bristol. What would people around the world love to know about the members there and the church there?
So the church here is multicultural. There are so many different nationalities within the Bristol stake. It's wonderful. We have people from all parts of the world, all cultures. And not long after I was called, we came together and we shared food together from the countries of people's heritage. And so we had food from Ghana, we had food from Nigeria, we had food from Samoa, from Jamaica, from Russia, from Poland. We had food from China, just all over the place. The Philippines, again. When you mentioned,
Adobo.
we had some bihon and some calderitas.
Oh, oh, nice.
Calderitas, my favorite. You had calderitas?
I haven't. I've had the first thing though. I haven't had a
Bihon? Yeah,
cold.
bihon is good, but calderitas for me, oh, if yeah, calderitas are good. So yeah, we that's what we did, and for two reasons. One is just to get people mingling again, because it wasn't too long after COVID had kind of ended that I was called as stake president. And so it felt as though it'd be good just to kind of come back together again and get used to spending time with each other in person. And food is always a good way to celebrate someone's ancestral heritage. Um, and so Bristol's extremely multicultural. The other thing with reference to Bristol, and I don't know if this is the same in other places as well. I think that it is, but that there is a large amount of people inquiring about the church and about faith in Christ on Facebook and online referrals. So
Wow.
we in one ward in Weston-super-Mare on a regular basis, there were about 9 people attending that were investigating the church, or friends of the missionaries, as they're now referred to. So 9 people coming. I was up at the stake centre preparing for a meeting. I'd already attended church beforehand, but the service was going on, and a family of 6 showed up at the door. They were at they were at the back entrance as opposed to the front entrance. They couldn't get in, so they were ringing the bell. And I went out to greet them. Family of six. They said that they saw the church online and just thought that they would come along. So, is faith dying in the UK? Are we becoming more secular? Maybe there is an argument for that, and I think that that is the case. But that doesn't mean to say everybody is. When the Lord talks about gathering his elect and gathering Israel, it's him that's doing the work and it's reaching out to people. Our responsibility and our job is to see the signs, to put the effort in to try and find them. And when they come, to share with them the faith that we have and help them develop their faith to come closer to Christ. So I'm not much of a numbers person. Like, that's not the thing that drives me. The thing that drives me is having people's lives change because they come to know the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, that they come to know Christ, and that because of them coming to know Christ, everything gets put into its correct perspective. And all of the frustrations, disappointments, hurts, injustice, unjust things that go on in the world all get put into the correct perspective because of him, not because of me, or not because of the building, not because of the bishop or the person that's giving the talk, but because of Jesus Christ and their connection to him. And that's a wonderful thing to be a part of. Wonderful thing to be a part of. I
There's
was
a
I was talking to the mission president just today, actually, and we were discussing, what would it look like if we changed our way of thinking and we asked the Lord different questions. And so some of those different questions would be, um, what would it, excuse me, what would it need to look like in order for multiple people to be baptized each month in each ward across the state? What would need to be true in order for that to happen? Where is the lack of faith in that area? Is that on the members? Is it on the missionaries? Is it a combination of the two? Is it a misfocus of focusing on the wrong thing? Is it speaking about the wrong thing? Is it that we're being distracted and we're caught up in the thick of thin things? And so, going back to something I think that we mentioned before, is that Joseph Smith asked questions and he got answers. And at age 14, he asked a question and received an answer. But between the age of 14 and 18, he didn't ask any more questions, so he didn't receive any more answers. And then when he was about 18, he asked a question and then he got an answer. And then from then, he kept asking questions. And other people kept asking him to ask questions of God. And that's where all of these answers came. And so the higher quality of our question, the higher quality of answer that God can give us. So just by saying, I'll give you a really daft example, and it's a secular example as opposed to a spiritual one, yeah? So it could be, I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, why am I fat? The answer is, well, because you're lazy. But that's no good. The answer to that question is no good. If I ask a different question, what can I do that's fun to keep me healthy? All right, now I've got a different answer. You love to play tennis. You love to go walking with your wife and the dog. Maybe you should wrestle some more with your son. Maybe, and these answers that come are more progressive and lead you to a brighter place instead of asking really low value questions. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the bishops of the stake and also with the mission president. How can we elevate the level of our questions so that when we receive that revelation from God, it leads us closer to him instead of further away from him?
That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. It's a I love talking about the role of faith and what's happening with missionary work in different states and stuff like that. I learned recently that there has not been a greater amount of 18 to 30-year-olds who are openly admitting that they pray every day in the UK since 1970
Wow,
today.
I did not know that stat, but that's a good stat, and it's not a surprising one because the amount of missionaries that we've got serving at the moment across the world is phenomenal. We
Oh yeah,
had
yeah.
in our stake, right? We had in 3 consecutive weeks, 3 young people received their mission call. So week one,
Wow.
that was Vancouver. Week two, that was London mission. Week three, that was Johannesburg, South Africa. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I love hearing that. It's yeah, it brings hope and it brings optimism to so many people who will say faith is dying in Europe, and it's like, well, I'm not so sure. I think among millennials, that there's an argument to be made there, but the rising generation are out in force, absolutely. And Darren, this has been. Oh,
Yeah, I would even say so with the millennials here. Now, please tell me if you've got any stats that say anything different, but this is my observation. When as you'll find this out, as you get older, your perspective adjusts and shifts because your life adjusts and shifts. And the more you live in your faith, the more your faith progresses and grows, or it dies. But sometimes it may look like dying, but actually what it's being done is being cut back so it can grow back better. So there is, and I've got a number of friends that feel really angry with the church as an organization. Some of them feel really angry with God. Some of them don't even know if there is a God anymore. The way that I view that and the way that I choose to see that is that they are on a faith journey. And I have seen multiple people go on a faith journey where they have had their faith cut back so much that it doesn't look like there's anything there anymore. I don't even know if God exists anymore. And then, boom, this thing shoots out and they are the strongest that they have ever been. This person's not of our faith, or at least in life he wasn't anyway. But C.S. Lewis, my understanding is this was a man that was an atheist before he found Christ. And the writings that he came up with and the insights that he gave and the stories that he's told has grown not only his own faith, but grown other people's faith. And we look in the Book of Mormon, my understanding of the experience that Alma the Younger had is that he was going around persecuting the church because he thought that it was just a complete nonsense, a total nonsense. And when the angel came and said, stop persecuting the church, the angel didn't say, get yourself back to church. The angel didn't say, come on now, repent and change your ways. The angel just said, stop persecuting the church. Because if you don't stop persecuting the church, I'm going to come back again and make sure you don't persecute the church. I've given a bit of extra there that's not in the Book of Mormon, but you get the sentiment, yeah? That the angel didn't say to do anything else apart from stop persecuting the church. Now, it was Alma the Younger's and the sons of Mosiah's choice to reach out and call out for redemption from Christ because of the circumstance that they were in, that then made them into the great spiritual conduits of the love of Jesus Christ that they were. But if you just took a snapshot of their life at that particular time, you would say they are like, you could put a really good argument together to say they are a lost cause. Absolute lost cause. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing the other. There is no hope for them. So my faith and my experience is that if these things can happen to these people, well, then why am I writing off these other people that are going on a different faith journey than what my faith journey is looking like at the moment?
No, you're absolutely right. And sometimes when we think of it in group, when we look at a survey and we see statistics and generalizations, it can dehumanize, and we realize that everyone is a child of God on a journey, and in different environments and circumstances. It is illuminating, and
And that God loves these people. Yeah, that
yes,
these, to God, they are not numbers on a page. To God, they are numberless. So He doesn't care about the numbers, it appears to me, because I've created worlds without end. I've created people. It's like,
yeah,
what's the
yeah,
number
yeah,
of
that's true.
creations that God has? There is no number to it. So that tells me that He doesn't care about the number. So the stats can give
That's a
us
great point.
mortals an indication of what to do or what not to do, but it's only just part of a story. And it's really, really important to hold on to the biggest story, is that God has created everything and He loves everything, and that Christ has redeemed everything because of the love that God has for us and the love that Christ has for us. And when we choose to come to Christ, He will then come to us. And so let's do less writing people off and let's do more lifting people up. And the phrase that you used about dehumanizing people, I think is a really, really good point, because when these are numbers on a page or statistics that's coming out from a survey, then they cease to be humans. They cease to be people. It's just a statistic.
Hmm. Well, that's a great point you've made, and a good place to end. I think I'm really grateful for your time and your insights, giving us a peek behind the curtain, as it were. And thank you. You can really tell how you speak and what you say that you do care immensely for the people in your stake, and that you are blessed with that gift of charity for them. And it's wonderful to see. So thank you for your time, Darren. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Ben. Great to speak.
See you later.
All right, take care.
Thanks for watching For All the Saints. This show needs your help to grow. Please like the video, comment your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone you think would enjoy it. Thank you.